All content in this video, including but not limited to text, graphics, images, audio, and video, is the property of Toward Health and is protected by international copyright laws. Unauthorized distribution, reproduction, modification, or use of this content without prior written permission from Toward Health is strictly prohibited. For permissions, please contact us at contact@drtro.com.
Hi, my name is Vic Basmadjian. I'm a certified health coach at Towards Health, and welcome for joining me to our Mastering Low Carb series, where my talk today will be about how to navigate holidays, vacations, social events. And this is a topic that is very something that I have navigated in my journey personally for which is very close to 8 years now. Um I'm I've been, somebody who has yo-yo dieted for many years before finding my success on the low carb lifestyle. And the majority of the time, whenever I uh, my weight loss went in the wrong way, when I had regain or relapse, it generally entailed always it went off a vacation, it went off the holidays, a celebration, or a social event. It never was just for on any given day that I would start going the other way. It just would be something that when you're on vacation for a couple of weeks and you kind of you permit yourself to have foods that you usually don't. You're eating more, and all of a sudden, when you come back from vacation, we've already put on some weight, and the slippery slope just starts going deeper and deeper and deeper. Same thing for special occasions, having that one bite and having that one night, of which I'll be covering on, as we move along on the slides. You'll see that we'll be talking about these things that lead to weight gain and falling off track. So today I hope to share some tips with you of how for the past 8 years I finally found the key in low carb ketogenic lifestyle, how to make it a lifestyle, how to be prepared to navigate these situations. And I hope you can all benefit from these tips and find it that it's a useful tips. So let's start with that. So the first thing that is, I want to make completely clear that people always think it's about food, and well, it is at the end of the day about food, but pretty much everybody knows what to eat, but or what we should necessarily avoid. But it's more of a programming of how do we set ourselves up to succeed. And if we don't know, something we talk about very often in our practice, that if we can't show people how to manage their hunger, this is what we call our five musts. And we find that this is, the key component. It's if we can't manage these things that we're going to talk about right now, it's very difficult to survive all these situations. So we need to learn how to manage your hunger. Okay, if somebody is hungry, we all know that it's going to lead to poor decisions. We need to teach people how to deal with cravings. What do I do to make my cravings less? How do I not have cravings or less cravings? How do I prepare for that? How do I feel better for that? How do I deal with feelings of deprivation? There's nothing worse than being during your holidays, being at home and seeing everybody's eating, and you can't have this and you can't have that, and it generally becomes very frustrating. So, how do you deal with not having to have those feelings of deprivation? It's something that we always need to apply and learn how to not have those feelings. How to deal with the social situation, which is, again, a birthday party, a celebration, a wedding, just nights out with our friends. How do we deal with this? How do we deal with, you are certainly going to be challenged, and what we call the bullies who are going to try to bully you into making a bad choice or making you feel guilty. We'll talk about all these things. How do situations when you're emotional and mental health, when you're stressed out, when we talk about, using food for a coping mechanism, or, when you're really, really stressed out, looking out for that comfort food. how do we navigate this? So mental health is just as important. So I've been told many times throughout the years that you must have people who know that I've maintained this lifestyle for maintained 100 pounds weight loss for 8 years now. They say you must have some very very strong willpower. And the fact remains that willpower has very little to do with it. Willpower is important at the beginning to get engaged. You got to have the will to start and make this lifestyle. However, willpower alone is, in my opinion, is really is futile if you don't have the right tools that we just spoke about at the beginning. Willpower, prepare for your worst day, not when motivation is high and things are easy. So at the beginning, things are going to be going good. Things are going to be, you know, uh, you're motivated, you're high. It's a short amount of time, but for the long run, how long can willpower continue to carry you when you don't have the right tools to navigate this system? While no foods are good or bad, or foods have, all foods do have different nutritional values. You get the final say to whether you want to eat something, and it's your responsibility at the same time, or not a responsibility, but having the knowledge of and connecting back to how a certain food made you feel, its impact on your body, your brain, your psyche, and what can help avoid feeling deprived. Um, I always ask myself, at the beginning particularly, I remind myself that how I used to feel. If it was, for argument's sake, it was bloating, I would feel bloated. And I wouldn't feel good with that food, but I would still consume it anyways. So I remind myself that I don't want to go back to those days that I didn't feel well. During the holidays, we eat and copious amounts of carby foods and end up going and sitting on the couch and you got no energy and you're having the sugar spikes and I don't want to go back to those days. So I know and you learn throughout the time of your journey, which foods are making you feel this way. So you need to ask yourself, is it really worth having this food or not? You are making a choice rather than having one imposed on you. So um, lots of times people are gonna try to impose, particularly on these situations, on holidays, on birthdays, on at any other birthday celebration. They're gonna try to impose choices on you. You should be, responsible for making your own choice. The moderation myth, we often the topic is so much spoken about that. Well, just eat everything in moderation. This lifestyle is uh, you know, crazy, as it's been called from some people, that you're exaggerating, you're eliminating a food group or whatever it may be. And just eat everything in moderation and you'll be totally fine. So should people might ask themselves, shouldn't I be able to eat a little bit of everything? Well, you need to ask yourself the question. For so many years, at least I know myself, for maybe 30 plus years of dieting, possibly 40 years of dieting, uh, I didn't succeed by having to eat everything in moderation. Why would it work now? If moderation didn't work for all my other failed attempts, which I have certainly tried approaches of diets that are in moderation, if they didn't work 10 times, just to put a number to it, why is moderation going to work the 11th time? So you need to ask, do I need another approach? Moderation relies heavily on willpower, magically showing up at the most vulnerable moments. And it will show up at the beginning. It will be there at the beginning, but it soon fades through experience. I know this. Could maybe hang in there for a month, in the best case scenario. That was for myself. Maybe others can last longer, but I noted the pattern that I'd be able to white knuckle it for about a month or so, and then you eventually start giving in and say, like, willpower is just not doing it. And again, comes in the moderation topic. Moderation appears to be a common sense approach, but it rarely takes two factors into account: who you are and your health and your history, and the modern hyper palatable processed food environment, which are designed expressly designed to make us want to crave more and not to be able to eat it in moderation. When it comes to who you are in your health and your history, everybody needs to know themselves. Everybody needs to be aware with what foods that they may be able to moderate and other foods that they are not able to moderate. I've often been quoted as saying, everybody needs to know their kryptonite, what they cannot control, what they cannot moderate. Okay. And the people who are generally supporters of moderation are people that who have always been, and there are some people that throughout their whole life have been able to moderate. And so these are the people that generally don't understand and can't support what we do because they've always been able to moderate, but they just can't relate to the fact that some of us just cannot moderate. We don't have an off switch for certain foods. We just keep going and going, and our desire increases to eat more and more and more and more. If you find it nearly impossible to moderate certain foods or they impact your health or well being, you get to decide how you proceed. If you continually, if a food continually causes harm, discomfort, or distress, this is all the information you need for a reliable source about whether you should have this food or not. So it's something that again we need to recognize which foods that we're able to moderate and which foods we are not able to moderate and how they make us feel and how much trouble or not enough trouble that they may get us in. Some of us, I mean, it's as much as we say that we need to find replacements, and we'll be getting that a little bit later in the presentation. Uh, with replacements, but sometimes we need to abstain from foods that cause us harm, and it's not, abstinence from foods that cause you harm is not an eating disorder, it is self-care. So there's certain foods that we need to abstain from. Even if we find a replacement, it could be troublesome for some people, but we'll talk about that on, some of the further slides. Managing social situations. So self-advocacy, this is a huge one where people, particularly at the beginning of their journey, are kind of shy, kind of hesitant to self-advocate. They're just starting and they're feeling bad, and you got the social bullies that we've spoken about in our practice before, and we've addressed uh, this topic. Uh, they're going to come up to you and they're going to say, "Just this one time." How many of you have heard this? It's okay. It's only today. There's no harm. Or they're going to tell you they're going to put the guilt trip on you. Okay, it's like they made this just for me. They want you thinking that way, and they will state it. Well, I went out of my way to make it for you. It's so you kind of give in, and you say it's a special occasion. The person went out of their way, and they made this special for me. So it's a special occasion. I'll just have a little bite. And now sometimes that little bite, some people can get away with that little bite, but more times than none, we all seen the ending of where that usually ends up. It's not so much that one little bite, it's what the aftermath is going to be for your desire to constantly wanting it. Okay, so it's like, as we say, we don't want to wake up the sleeping demons that we haven't been having for a while. And when we get a flavor and the flavor profile, we're reminded very quickly of how long we haven't had it, you're going to want to reach out for it more and more. So we need to learn how to self-advocate and turn it down and explain to them, well, you just don't want that food, or it doesn't make you feel good, and you're just trying to take care of your health. So self-advocacy is key. The food I'm craving will taste awesome. This is the thought. This is and all depending on where you are in your journey, uh, this thought process changes, uh, and this thought process at a certain point, I've heard this from so many people, and including myself. At one point, I did, go recognize this, and I still recognize it. Saying the food I'm craving will taste awesome, but then after the fact that they have the food, they say, you know what, it wasn't as awesome as I thought it was going to be. So, like, was it really worth it? And a lot of people find that our palates change throughout our journey. And it's not, it's more of uh, a mental presumption that it's going to taste awesome. But a lot of times you just say it wasn't that, it wasn't that great. It may taste great for a few moments, but it's, not necessarily, uh, like I say, you continue having it and you say it's really not what it used to be. Telling yourself the truth about the foods you are craving. Um, yes, a few bites may taste good, but also they'll leave you ravenously hungry, make your joints hurt, and give you a stomach ache. Maybe they'll cause a blood sugar spike. It's not maybe, it's certainly if you're having, sugary foods, you're gonna have a or a high carb foods, you're gonna have a spike, possibly a migraine, uh, or your eczema flaring up. So lots of times it's not so much, again, I will repeat, it's not that one bite, it's the aftermath. What's going to happen? It's going to make you hungrier. It's going to want you to desire having more. So you're going to want to have more for this. Have you ever been able to limit these foods before? Or do they usually lead down a rabbit hole of continued poor food choices and a days long binge? I know myself, there are certain foods that I can permit myself to have, keeping it low carb. And there are other foods that, even though it's been 8 years, I still don't give myself permission to have these foods unless it's a replacement. Because if I do have that food, I don't want to reintroduce that flavor profile. Uh, I know that it's always been problematic for me. I know where the story has ended before, and I just don't want to go back there. The replacement strategy. Replace what you can't resist. We are, at our practice at Towards Health, we speak about this to many of our patients and our clients. And how will you stay on your lifestyle path in the face of constant temptation? Consider using a low carb replacement alternative. Okay, this is what we think that helps a lot of people. I know myself that in my journey, if I did not have the option of these low carb replacements, I'm not too sure if my journey would have been as successful as it has become. And I don't even know if I'd be around for 8 years of sustaining it. Uh, Chances are probably not. If you told me that I had to be deprived of my favorite foods and that I could not have a replacement for it, it would, for Vic, it would be problematic. Replace what you can resist. However, we must say these foods are not necessarily weight loss tools. They are part of a good, better, best strategy that we speak about, and we'll touch that on further slides for sustainably living low carb in the real world. Consider using low carb replacement foods in the same way you use a spare tire. You don't use a spare tire every day. You use it only as needed. And it does not replace your sturdier regular tires, which would in this case be considered satiating food, but is a temporary solution to get you through a difficult time. And so I often repeat that this should not, the replacement foods should not be a staple. If it's become a staple, we're really not that far ahead. Maybe at the beginning, but eventually as we progress, it should be only when I'm having, we're all human. We're gonna have cravings. It's gonna happen, and but have it when what we call, it's break glass in case of emergency. If I don't find a replacement, I'm liable to have the real option. So they should be a tool. They should be a training wheel, and not a staple. With hunger, cravings, and feelings of deprivation managed, social situations will be easier, but they still, however, will be challenging. I myself, after 8 years, it's still challenging for me. Thankfully, I you know everything that I'm talking about today, I apply to my own journey, and that's what helps me go through. If I was to go through willpower alone, I honestly can tell you that I would not have been able to go through this. If you have the option, make sure there will be a safe foods available at the event. Consider bringing replacement options with you if you need to, or keeping something perishable in the car for your ride home. There's something that sometimes that, I mean, it's something that I do. I've kept, whatever I need to keep in a glove compartment, and it's a replacement. I can have it, and I don't have to be tempted with having really bad choices. Like, always set your chances up for you to succeed. If you're going to go somewhere and you have absolutely no options, it becomes tough. If this is not an option, if you think that you're not going to be able to take something with you, or have something in your glove compartment just to go out for a moment and get something to eat, go into the situation fully satiated. Eat if you have to eat before you go, and uh, we got to do what we got to do sometimes. And people find that very foreign at the beginning of their journey. Like, how do I eat and go to an event? Well, it's better than setting yourself back up and going back to zero because you had terrible choices. And enlist an ally to help support you with this. Know that there are people who will support you with this, just as there are people who are gonna, tempt you and tell you have that one bite and it's okay. And there's those that are gonna support you. So try to align yourself with these people. Again, we get back to the magical wizard of willpower, not magic. It's not gonna magically show up at our most vulnerable moments. So prepare for it when you are not feeling vulnerable. Like, make your plan. Not having a plan is a plan to fail, because the willpower is not going to show up when you are exposed to all the foods that are the foods that you've had in the past, and you still kind of have that thought of like how good they taste, and you haven't yet really mastered abstaining. So as we move on, it becomes easier and easier, but it is challenging at the beginning. So just again, I will, can't repeat it enough times, willpower is not going to carry you through. What strategies worked in the past and what didn't? You need to ask yourself, honest questions. Did this strategy, if you're going into a situation of whether it's a social event, let's say, and you've had the strategy of going in and saying that I'm going to have a little bit of everything and I'll be okay. If it didn't work in the past, why should it work now? And you got to ask yourself, why didn't it work? Why did it or didn't the strategies work in the past? You need to ask, why didn't it work in the past? So once you figure this out and once you're prepared, you'll be fine. How might they have been more effective? What can I do? How could it have been more effective then? And what can I do now to make it more effective? So basically, we want to build defenses, not willpower. And the defenses need to be built before the actual, whether it's the vacation, whether it's the holidays, whether it's whichever social event, a birthday, the defense system has to be built in advance, not when we get there and try to figure things out. Rather than judge and shame yourself, ask what you will need to do to avoid to rely on not, what we need to avoid having to rely on willpower. Again, it becomes the good, better, best. We're not going to be at the best all the time. Sometimes there's going to be choices that are may not be perfect, but they're not necessarily choices. Don't stay away from the choices that are going to be a total disastrous choice. So, is it good? Is it not? Go dining. It's going to be not. If you're dining out, is it going to be? It's not going to be like eating at home. It's going to be. They're going to be using undesirable ingredients. Are they perfect? No. But you can still make the best choice. You can possibly pick up. Stay protein oriented. It may not have the best quality of oils that are being used, but it's still it's a better choice than having French fries, or I don't know why I pick on French fries because I do know, but so that's what it is. Frequently repeated patterns are self assessment triggered questions. Look at the things that are happening around you. We often ask people, when do you most often get in trouble? Is it who are the problem people, the problem places, the problem situations, times of day and foods? So when is that happening? When is it? Which time of day? At what time? Is it in the evenings? In the afternoon? When do you get yourself in trouble the most often? It's also helpful to take a closer look at the internal messages you are telling yourself. What am I asking myself to? What am I going for something? What am I feeling to have that urge to have something? So you need to have this conversation with yourself and trying to make note of, Where are these situations? Who are these people? What are these times? And once you start to find the pattern, then it'll be easier to navigate. Notice the self-talk and planning, lack of planning that often goes into I found myself unable to resist. I knew I shouldn't have had it, but I had it. Heard that so many times. If you notice these thoughts, you can help developing strategies and things to tell yourself in response to these internal messages. No strategy, no plan, we're liable to fail again. And you're not failing because again, it's if you're going strictly on willpower, again, it's you're set up for failure. Nobody's told you that it's not that willpower having a little bit of this and having a little bit of that, you'll be fine. So nobody taught you about the five musts. You're setting up yourself for failure. In the same way, we put our low carb replacements in place at special events in case we need them. You just have to build yourself an arsenal. Okay, when you build yourself an arsenal of replacements, you're going to find that it's so much more manageable and so much easier to navigate. Just like most times you're going to find a replacement for just about everything. It's very doable. Have a plan in place for before, during, and after. It's not uncommon for people to struggle after an event. We see that quite often, actually, that the person was able to hold off during the actual event, but then in the days following is when they get themselves into trouble. When defenses are down and the resistance to fighting urges have been depleted, um, that's when people they made it through the event, they made it through that birthday or that celebration or that one evening, and that they were hosting, and people had what they had, but they abstained. But then the day after, rather than going back to restriction, considering, adding a few days of higher protein, because with that stuff, especially if that stuff is still lingering around, people have been known to go to it when it's um, still around. Pressure is down and the mindset changes. So I often when I'm hosting, one of my tricks, which I'll say from now before we get to the strategies, is I like to, just set up stuff and just tell people to take it away with them if I'm the host, and that way I won't be tempted the next day. Harm reduction, again, coming back to the good, better, best. Okay, so are we always going to be in the best situation? No, but we need to know, we need to plan. We need to say, okay, what is my best scenario? What is my better, acceptable scenario? And what is a good, acceptable, better than, completely falling off track? We need to plan for these things. Perfection is unsustainable. Um, I don't know of anybody that's, can claim that, their perfection usually, uh, I'm not saying nobody exists, but it's extremely rare. Perfection is tough. How often have you tried to be your ideal self, but for whatever reason you could not adhere to your lifestyle goals and fell off entirely? This is a pattern that can be broken. I believe that if you're always striving for perfection, that's going to lead to unsustainability, because at a certain point, it gets very tough to be, you know, in perfection mode. Rather than attempting and failing at moderation or perfection, consider harm reduction. Okay, it goes back. It always goes back to create a good, better, best strategy for every challenging scenario. What would be the best? What would be the better? What would be the good? And if that's what's in front of you, that's what you need to deal with. In the moments you are implementing the good or better strategies, your goal is not maintaining an idealized vision, but rather a practical and realistic way to not fall into the all or nothing patterns that you have played out many times before. It's like it's the all or nothing. If it didn't go well, they just completely blow it. But it's okay. I mean, if part of it was not, ideal, it wasn't the best, but it was a good option. Good is good enough on that day. You don't have to be at the best all the time. We try to be. It's always a lot easier in the perfect world when we're home. It's easiest to be the best. But when we're on the road, when we're in social events, when we're on vacations, when it's the holidays, it's tough to be at our best. So maybe sometimes just allowing ourselves to be in the good allows us to make this lifestyle sustainable. Planning for a be in those moments is an effective and winning strategy. Avoid, again, all or none with good, better, best. Build defenses, not willpower. Remember, the patterns you've seen, they're going to always play out before. They're always going to play out of how it happened before. And once you start recognizing this, rather than judge and shame yourself, ask what you will need to do to avoid having to rely on impulse control next time. Obviously, the other times that it didn't work, they're not going to start magically start working now. So willpower is not going to have a brand new wand that's going to, for some reason, start working for you. Applying this to real life. So how do we take all this and I'd like to give you a few examples of how do we actually apply this to real life once we have all these tools in place. Uh, Whether it's a holiday, vacation, restaurant, or social situations. I've been doing this for close to 8 years, so that means I've dealt with, 8 years of birthday celebration, 8 years of holidays, multiple 8 years of holidays, and multiple vacations, multiple social situations. Uh, was I perfect at all times? Absolutely not, but I made the good, better, best choices. And this is how I get through it. And this is how it gives me hope to keep maintaining this lifestyle. So let's talk a little bit about holidays. And, for the holidays, preparing with replacement options is the most powerful tool. If you can, again, as I spoke earlier, if you can build your your list of options of what you have created for replacements, they work. And I want to say something about the replacements. There's some people, they have the all or nothing mentality. They say that, well, it doesn't taste like the real thing. Well, at a certain time, we need to take a decision that, it is very, you can invest time and you can make replacements. Maybe they're not going to be 100% the real thing, but if we can just scratch the itch and make it, good enough, come close to it, come very close to it, you'd be surprised at things you can do and how happy you'll be. And I've had family over for holidays, and they always say, well, we can actually eat like this. We wouldn't have a problem. Now, some of them get influenced. They do it for a while. They don't do it for the whole run. But nobody has ever said, "Well, this is no good. I can't have it." So you're in control. Especially when you're hosting. Maybe you can turn people on to having this lifestyle. So uh, just when you're in control, it's all good. Visiting and when you're visiting, take along with you. Make a replacement, take it with you. Take enough to share with everybody. Just don't take it for your own. That way, you'd be surprised how their attitude may change and say that, hey, this is really not, I didn't think it would be this good and what it would be. So, you'd be surprised. I've had several people say, I can't believe that, that it tastes so good because they always thought that it's not going to be flavorful, that it's just not good. Avoiding all or nothing, again, how many days are actual holiday, particularly on the holidays? Holidays start generally, way in advance and they go way after. So if the actual holiday is, theoretically the main celebration can go on for about 3 weeks to a month, but the actual celebration days were, let's say, maybe 4 or 5 days between having repeat guests and then repeat family. We don't have to blow it for the whole 3 weeks, you know. Uh, if we just say the all or nothing, well, I already ate today, I'm going to keep do it tomorrow and tomorrow. The holidays could get extended, and a lot of damage can be done if we just keep going off track for 3 weeks to a month. So just, if you're going to go stay low carb, stay within the parameters of low carb, you may be consuming more, but uh, you're not going to do it for every single day. for 3 weeks or a month. So there's a huge difference in that. I used to come out of the holidays with that mentality. I used to come out of the holidays, gaining a very good amount of weight prior to this lifestyle. But now with this lifestyle, you know what? I come out of the holidays. I think even if you break even, it's a huge win. And if it's a couple of pounds on the other way, I'm not going to beat myself up. Okay, if you get back on track, you know, without being tough on yourself, it'll be all right. So don't have the all or nothing. Vacations. My main tip for that is generally, I mean, if at all possible, if you're going to that type of a vacation, if you do end up, if you have access to, if you're doing an Airbnb sort of a thing, and you do have an efficiency, my first stop after I get off, before checking into my to the unit, I will go and do a friendly Costco haul. You'll likely consume more replacements than usual, but I like to set up myself for success. I know that I'm going to be tempted. I know that on vacation, I'm always going to be surrounded by seeing people eating all kinds of stuff. And it's going to remind me, and I'm going to get feelings of deprivation. So it's a better option than to feeling deprived and going off the rails. I'll go get myself replacement options. Okay. Like, I'll give an example. Well, if you're sitting on the beach, the ice cream trolley is going to go by. You're going to see everybody reaching out and buying ice cream and having ice cream, and you're going to feel deprived. So, but if you can get yourself some keto friendly ice cream, and you know that when you get back to your room, you can have it, so you're no longer feeling deprived. Is it ideal? Do I have keto ice cream year round? Absolutely not. But when I'm on vacation, I want to feel like I'm on vacation, so I'm not being deprived. You're going to probably see people having on the beach or wherever it may be, uh, their lunches and chips and stuff like that and snacks. So get your keto friendly snacks to make sure that you are able to have something if you want to have it. Uh, Consider shifting the posts on your fasting schedule sometimes to fit your vacation schedules. I, for one, am somebody that generally year round I don't have breakfast. Usually a 2 meal a day kind of guy, and it's eating. It could change a 6 hour window, a 4 hour window, an 8 hour window. But when I'm on vacation, I don't want to get caught with making a bad choice. So what I do is I shift my fasting window. I have a good solid breakfast before I leave the room, and I know that it's going to carry me right through until supper. So I know that even during the day, when I'm even feeling tempted because I'm seeing people eat, I'm full, I'm satiated, it doesn't feel that bad. So again, I know that I can get to my room later and have some kind of a replacement. And so it's all about not vacation is hugely, still enjoying your vacation, not being perfect, and having resources to you that are going to keep you within low carb. Will it be perfect? No. Are those foods ideal? No. But they get you through your vacation without coming back having gained 10, 15 pounds. Restaurants, do your homework. When you're going out dining, whether you're on vacation or whether even if you're local, wherever you're going, check menus online so you don't get caught. You might find out that there's a restaurant that just has absolutely no safe options for you. By going on the menu, again, is the menu going to be perfect? No, but there's a lot of places that have much better choices than a place that there may be some places that you can just get caught without you're being cornered because there's just no viable options that are even fit in the good category in the good, better, best. You don't even have the good option. So do your homework, check the menus online. Today we have that advantage of being able to see that. Use our app. In our Toward Health app, we have an amazing section with fast food option recommendations. We have a lot of the top chain fast foods, and we've actually listed and for your consideration, actually even the top meals in every chain. Order this at wherever it may be, and so it's a great situation knowing that you can go actually dine at fast food places and still make a good choice instead of being in that best scenario of how you're eating at home. Don't be scared to ask for swaps on your dish when you're dining out. You know, salad, extra veggies, instead of starchy sides, extra protein. They're going to cater to you. Restaurants are going to cater to you. So you'd be surprised. People are shy to ask for a modification, but restaurants will cater to you. Cruises will, getting back to, and I'm jumping back to holidays, but a cruise, you'd be surprised. They'll cater to any dietary requests that you can think of. They're great for that. They're going to even cater to your seed oil choices. Some restaurants will even cater you to your seed oil choices. But cruises will even make you keto desserts if you ask for it. So don't be shy to ask. Social situations. Think with the approach of a good, better, best. I know I've repeated this quite often in my presentation. And again, maybe consider eating before you go. If you're full, you know, uh, even if the choices are terrible, you're always going to find a little bit of something that works for you, and just enough to get you by if the choices are terrible. Again, they may not be the best choices, but if you're full, you don't need much. So generally, we know that if we're going to go somewhere, we sometimes just know that the choices are going to be very limited. So just go a little bit satiated. It goes a long way. Most of the time, you can find a good option, and some edits and prioritizing protein options can really go a long way. Um, yeah, so thank you for joining me today. I really hope that you found some value into this presentation and that you can apply some of these tips and mindset of where we really need to focus on to be able to navigate and maintain this lifestyle for a long time. Thanks for joining me.